It is time for Who Watch, Time and Relative Blackness in Space.
Black girls have the box.
Hi everyone, it's Bayana, Connie, and Robin coming to you live from the Time Vortex.
Today we are discussing, or continuing our companion series by discussing all there is to talk about Martha Jones. And joining us today is Ty Gooden, who is a freelance writer who has written for several online publications, including The Guardian, Sci-Fi Fangirls, Vice, Gizmodo, Black Girl Nerds, Paper Magazine, Paste Magazine, The Learned Fangirl, The Frisky, and Upworthy. And when she's not writing, which seems like that's not
very
often,
little time.
she can be found waiting on the TARDIS.
Hi, Ty.
Hi, Ty.
Hey, how are you all?
Good.
Great.
How are you?
I just want to correct the record before we dive in. Dr. Martha Jones.
You're right. You're correct.
Some respect on that name.
That's right.
Thanks for joining us, Ty.
I always put the doctor in front of her name.
Thanks for joining us. I wanted you to come on this episode primarily because you have some great Martha cosplay. I'm upset that you found the jacket and just made it work. Talk to us more about your cosplay experiences being Martha at conventions and stuff.
Well, my whole Martha look came together. It was all by just sheer luck. I had been looking around online trying to find leather jackets and stuff, and I just couldn't find anything that was the right color. And one of my good friends that I met at a Doctor Who convention that I do press at a lot said, hey, I've got a jacket. I think you can probably wear it, but it's a medium, so it might be a little big for you. But I'm like, I don't care. It's like an official licensed jacket. Like, I'm going to wear it, So she sent me the jacket, and she actually had the shirt that Martha wears, like the actual shirt that she wears in the series to go with it. So I'm like, okay, cool. And literally 2 days later, I get onto eBay and I see the jacket in in the size that I need. So I actually end up finding the jacket. And then 2 weeks later, I found the actual shirt in my size again. So it was like, wow. It was like destined from God for me to for me to cosplay Martha. And, I already had the boots and the jeans and everything. That's the only Martha look I've done so far, but I'm actually working on trying to get some things together to do a unit Martha this year. So yeah, so I'm hoping I'll have that together. Yeah, I want to do that at Dragon Con. So I've got a little bit of time to kind of get it together, but I do. Martha's my favorite cosplay.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think you're, Ty, if you follow her on Twitter, she's also working on some 13 cosplay, and I'm jealous that she found a shirt that looks close enough.
It is. It's a pretty close shirt, but, I got it, Connie, and it's kind of a little crop toppy. So, I'm going to have to make sure them pants are pretty high.
Her pants are pretty high, so it kind of works.
I was going to say, I think hers are pretty, high-waisted. I think it'll
I think it'll work pretty good. But, the pants, I think she said something about having her hand in all of the different elements of her outfit, and that most of it is custom. So, I don't know. I have a mother-in-law that sews, so maybe she can help us sister out if I can find the fabric and stuff. But I don't know if that was gonna come together this year or not. I've been kind of lazy lately.
I'd love to do a 13 cosplay. That sounds. I hope it comes together. At least I can see it. And then copy it.
I hope so too.
And then we obviously listed all of your many bylines. Is there? You've written about Martha before at some point, I assume. I think I've probably read something. It's escaping my mind right now. But have you written about Martha specifically, and where would we find it?
I did do something about Martha specifically last fall with the Learned Fangirl. I was doing a contributor series with them. And so one of the last things that I wrote, well, next to last thing, I still have one more thing coming out with them. But the next to last thing I wrote was kind of looking back at all of the different Black people and Black companions up there. And so I got a chance to actually break down Martha, look at just about every episode that she had, and just get all the feelings out there and talk about how I felt. Yeah, I got all of them out there. Just talk about how I felt and her relationship with the doctor and with other people. And so I think that's probably the best piece that I have out there that's really specifically tailored to Martha.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, let's intro into Martha. So when we first meet Martha, the doctor has had a weird encounter with Donna, but she declined to travel with him after he asked, and he finds himself drawn to a hospital in central London. And we actually the first episode of Martha season opens with her at the center. We're following her to work, and then we see the doctor. And I loved that introduction to her because, as we kind of talked about in with Rose's run, like Rose has nothing going on. And it's like at work when she first meets the doctor, but it's like at a shop. She's not really like committed to it. She's just, running the counter kind of. She's not like, she isn't in a position of power or anything like that. And like we see Martha like going to do rounds. She's a student, like going to be a doctor, like is kind of power walking through the streets of London.
She's
like
on
she
her
knows,
British Grey's Anatomy,
right? Like as a full, like she's in control. You can just tell that she's kind of in control of her surroundings, and she's talking to her sister. Shout out to Gugu.
Shout out.
And you can also tell that her family respects her, and she's important, like the glue of that family.
Yeah, her family's a mess, but she kind of manages all of that.
Right. It's a very dysfunctional family, but they all are leaning on Martha as like the voice of reason. And I think that that's really important to set up that Martha is like fully capable, is someone that people count on and depend on, and is a confident person, like confident and competent. Because I feel like while they don't do a Clara and they like don't change her characterization very much, they do take away a lot of that like confidence from her and that competency, or put her in positions where she's not able to like be her best self. I don't know what you guys think about that, but I always thought that was like something really like, I mean, we kind of see it too with Bill, our other Black companion. It's like, it starts off like, yeah, like we know who this person is, you know what I mean? And like all of the strengths that they're going to give us. And then they are just consistently put in positions where they're not able to like
shine
or be their best selves.
Yeah, I mean, I think a part of that is also just like they take away in later, well, I guess, we were talking in the last episode about the difference between like how Moffat deals with his companions versus Davies, but Martha, it's always clear that Martha has something else going on besides the doctor. Like she has other people around her, whereas like with Clara, all those people and those ties that she has gets taken away, and their new ones get introduced and then they get taken away, and then you know what I mean? So it's not really consistent. And it's kind of the same with Bill, where she has like a couple introductions to like some friends and like her foster mother or whatever, but they're never like really grounded or like Penny. And they're never really around. And so I feel like it kind of makes it so that like their motivations are kind of weird, right? Where like Martha goes off into traveling in space and time, which is also from jump a temporary thing.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm coming back.
Which is like more, it's like
that medical degree.
That, and also the doctor is being an ass, but like it's a temporary thing. But it's very clear that like her going to travel the world, or like, sorry, the universe is very much, it's like kind of a vacation, but also she's like learning new things that will then help her in her practice later. So there's always like an end goal and not just I'm aimlessly wandering around the universe and time.
Yeah, and I think that like her encounter with the doctor changes her trajectory, right? Like I'm sure that when she woke up that day, she thought, I'm gonna become a doctor, I'm gonna work at a hospital in London, like and now she's like if we follow her trajectory, you know, she's still a doctor, but she's in unit and she's like learning about other species, and it's a completely different thing than I think that she thought she would be doing before she ran into him. But she's still, at the end of the day, was like going to help people and going to be a doctor in some capacity. And it reminds me of kind of like when you go to college and you change your major, but you were going to college, you know what I mean? You're gonna graduate. Like that end goal is there. And like you maybe don't know all of the specifics or how that turns out, or some of the specifics can change along in your journey, but there's still an end like goal that is there like all the way through. So yeah, I don't know. I like that about her. Let's dive into her dysfunctional family, because I think that also informs who Martha is a lot, right? She's the oldest of 3 kids, it seems like, and then her sister Trish, and then Leo's the youngest.
I think so.
I don't know if we know that for sure, but yeah. Her parents are divorced, which doesn't seem to be a mutual thing, since her father is now dating a much younger woman, and her mother is mad about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, because it also kind of seems like the father is going through a midlife crisis, just a little bit. It's not necessarily it's not just that he's dating a younger woman, it's also just like the way that he acts with her is very much like
shopping, or these like sports cars.
Yeah. It's like the whole thing together, not just like,
right.
Because people fall in love with who they fall in love with. But like, yeah, it's very clear something's going on with him, and like, the mother can't take it. She's like, dude, I need you to be an adult.
Right. But also in doing that, the mother's leaning on Martha a lot, and Martha is also being tasked with keeping the peace. You know, it's Leo's graduation party or birthday party, when we, like, that's the thing that's happening when we first meet Martha, and she's trying to either convince her father not to bring the girlfriend so the mom is okay, or gets the girlfriend and the father to leave early or come at a separate time, like, and like all of that just falls on to Martha. Like everyone is calling her, expecting her to fix it or make it okay.
But you get the feeling that's something that happens all the time with her. Like it just seems like that's a normal conversation, that Martha is always the one, and her phone's constantly, she's going from one phone call to the other one, always trying to coordinate, always trying to be the peacekeeper. And so I think that was part of what really attracted her to the doctor. It's like you said earlier, with her wanting to get away and kind of have that escape from everything. And okay, this is one time where I don't have to be necessarily the leader or the person in charge, that maybe I can, you know, still be capable and everything, but I can also kind of follow someone at the same time. I don't have to be the person that's always fixing and gluing things back together.
Yes. And that she can have an adventure and not have to be the responsible one, right? Because you kind of like what Bayana was saying, like the dad's going through like a midlife crisis, right? He's like living up.
Even her parents aren't leading the family.
Right.
They're like,
so she's really having to step in and be that parental figure and kind of get everyone in line. And so this is her chance to just kind of let go of all of that and all of the responsibility and pressure that she's probably feeling from her studies, you know, in the medical field.
Right. And I think it's important to think about the fact that, like, when you are, like, studying to be a doctor, like, and it seems as though she's in her, like, intern or residency phase, like, early.
Yeah, she's graduated from medical school, but she's in, like, early training,
Yeah, so she's working these long hours, and then is also tasked with, like, dealing with this family, and like Ty said, and it feels like this is not a one-off because of Leo's birthday. This is like an ongoing like thing that she's tasked with. So she doesn't get you don't get the sense that like she gets off of work or, you know, does her rounds and then gets to just go home and like chill. You know? So the thought of escaping with the doctor, I think, has that for her, but it's also, I think, because she is so smart, like, we see when the Jejun comes, she's like, okay, we're still breathing, so let's figure this out. Like, there must be some oxygen somewhere. The rain is going up. Like, you know, we must be here. And so there's this intellectual curiosity that helps her, because the other doctors, especially like her friend when they're in the break room or whatever, become just like all the other patients, right? They start freaking out. Like, we don't get like anyone. We get that one white dude who is
He
like
just mansplains everything.
right. Like he's
useless.
But he does kind of take a position of like
authority.
Kind of. Yeah. But like he's just trying to survive, you know. Martha's trying to figure this out. Like, this is an interesting problem that she wants to solve. And I think that is really great because I think all the companions have that and that's what like makes the doctor want to travel with them is like when the craziness goes down, they're the ones being like, what is this? What's going on here? Let's figure this out. And their brain is kind of working in the same way the doctor's brain is, whereas other people would just pass out.
Right. True. Yeah. And I mean, I think I like that episode, that introduction episode to Martha a lot because it doesn't suffer from the same thing that like she ends up suffering from in subsequent episodes, which is like the doctor being really sad about Rose. So in this one, he's just like, oh, wow, you're really smart. Oh, you actually are like interested in why we're on the moon and what that means. And you're like trying to help and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, she has a moment where she like suddenly falls in love with him. And that part is kind of annoying. But like, and really to me, only because it's like, do they all have to be in love with the doctor? That seems weird. And like,
especially 2 in a row.
Yeah. Yeah. If it had been spaced out, maybe different doctors, perhaps I'd been like, okay, sure, whatever. But it was like back to back, and it seemed like that wasn't really necessary. But also back to her family, I think one of the interesting things is we don't really get to see them until like halfway through the season, like see them again, because all those like adventures that she goes on with the doctor, for one, he promises he's going to take her on one trip. And
it was one
like,
trip.
Okay. And then he's like, okay, let's do one in the past and one in the future.
It was technically all one trip.
And one in space. And then, so he like starts to kind of like Martha, right? But then we don't get to see them until he drops her off, and it's only the next morning from when she left them the day before. So that time his TARDIS is much more reliable, and she disappeared. Like
she has been missing, and people are like, "Oh no, someone murdered her."
Right? Yeah, she's just like for all they know, she went home, went to sleep, woke up. So I think that kind of is nice. And after that is when we kind of get her mother especially kind of interfering a little bit, asking more questions, like, who is this dude? You just met him yesterday at the hospital? Like, what's going on? Tish does help out in one episode, like the one when they initially get back.
Lazarus Experiment.
Yeah.
The Lazarus Experiment is a two-parter.
No, it was a one-parter.
Oh, it is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. It's after your favorite episodes with the pigs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, is it the first Gaddis episode or the third or something?
Oh, right. It might be the first Gaddis episode.
Yeah.
I think it's the first one. I can't say 100% sure.
I mean, he's in it more than I thought he was. Like, I didn't, like, when...
It's been at least... It was like
we
6.
did the Kwanzaa special, and Connie was like, this is like his 4th time. I was like, really? I remember him at least once. And then I looked it up, and because he's like different aliens and stuff. So
yeah. But I do think, though, that, like, when you talk about her mother, too, like, she comes back, she's with this guy, and then Tish is all about it, like, yeah, let's go figure this out. And she's like, because Martha is kind of the leader of the family, and it makes sense that, like, she sets an example, and the mom is like, oh, you setting this kind of example? Nah, let's not.
And then on top of it, some, like, men in suits come up to her and are like, we didn't talk to you about your daughter and this dude that she's running around with. And she's like, well, what? So then she starts working for the man.
Marietta Edgecombe. Sorry. With some Harry Potter stuff, but, you know, it works. I think that the one thing about Martha's family that I like and that we don't get in subsequent companions is also her commitment to them. Whenever I think about Martha, I think about that phone call, and I think it's 42 when she's like calling her mom right before she thinks she's about to get sucked into the black hole or the sun or whatever. I hate that episode, but I love that scene. And I love that about Martha because I think it just goes into that characterization of like she is fully herself and she knows herself and she knows what's important to her. And despite all of the terrible ways in which she is treated, like she doesn't lose that.
Yeah.
You know?
Kind of the opposite of what we were saying about Rose in the last episode. Of how she's not as secure and she very much attaches herself to the doctor and she kind of dismisses her family a lot in order to run away with the doctor, as opposed to Martha, who's just like, okay, but I do have my family and they are very important. They need me. So I'm here with you, but we're not going to forget them.
Yeah, and I mean, I think even in the moments where, like, she has her little, like, goo-goo eyes for the doctor, she's also like very good at putting her foot down. So like in the second New Earth episode, so for one, the doctor takes her basically to the same place that he took Rose. So he's just like doubling up on dates, which was tacky.
Which Martha calls out.
Yeah, she's just like, dude, are you serious?
Date.
Seriously, fam? So like just that, first of all, but then when he like will not tell her, right, like before she gets kidnapped, she's like, he like will not tell her what's wrong with him and like who this Rose person is and like what happened to her and why she has to deal with like his grief, but also like he's being mean and like rude to her and she doesn't know this person. She doesn't know why she's getting this like attitude from him. And so at the end, you know, he feels a little bit bad for not saying anything. He's like, she's about to die and I didn't tell her like why she's here or like really explain to her anything. But then he kind of backtracks on that when she's safe. And then she's like, no, I'm not leaving here until you let me know what's going on. Cause I can't like, who's going to be able to just be treated as like a third wheel when there's only two of us? That doesn't make sense. Let's lay it all out on the table. Like, let's be honest. Especially when you're like, traveling in time and space with someone, like you don't need to know their whole like life and backstory or whatever, but like there still needs to be some kind of level of trust between the two of you, and like
great.
you being hot and cold is not really a way to do that.
Right, and she's seen by that point that she needs to trust him with her life, and that's not something you just do lightly.
No, not when you're a doctor, especially,
right? Like I need to know that you know what you're doing, right? Like I need that level of like assurance. I want to just get this off my chest because I feel like I don't know where it fits in our little timeline of Martha's life, but the way I feel like it kind of goes very nicely here because they're talking about the way the doctor treats Martha. There are a few times, and this is specific, I think, to Martha's Blackness and her womanhood, that he is very dismissive or oblivious to the point of like putting her in danger.
You mean that time he dropped her in the early 20th century?
Yes.
In the middle of
yes.
And then turned human?
Like those episodes, but I get it.
The Shakespeare Code, and she's like, should I be okay? And he's like, yeah, of course. What? Act like you belong here. Like, that's not how that works. First off,
it made no sense whatsoever. I'm like, you, doctor, present as a white male,
right?
In the 1600s, you cannot take a black woman there and just say, "Oh, just swan around like you own the place," because that's not going to go over well.
No,
like that whole episode
just jeans.
Right.
He said, look,
so it's drawing more attention to her.
Right here.
Right. But like doesn't put her in like the right costuming. She's drawing attention to herself in like leather and jeans. And like, yes, there are black people there, but that doesn't mean those black people aren't safe. You know what I mean? So what the fuck is Martha, who doesn't know?
Right, just because a city is diverse, as however he describes London in 1600s, he's like, oh yeah, it's a thriving metropolis, not unlike current London. Yeah, let's talk about current London.
Right, black folk ain't safe in current London, walking around.
That whole episode just really... It really rubs me the wrong way. And it's, it's kind of several things in there first. First, starting off with that and him kind of dismissing her, having legitimate fear about being somewhere because she is black. So first he dismisses her with that. Then, you get to the part where they're laying in bed together and they're like facing each other and trying to figure out some things. And he's like, oh,
It
you know, I
aches
wish
so
Rose
bad.
was here. Because if Rose was here, she'd know exactly what to do. You know, he's like, oh, you're just a novice. So, you know, you don't know what you're doing. And I'm like, are you serious right now? Like,
Yeah.
number one,
And
she's
how did
training to be a
Rose-
medical professional. So she has
Right.
to have some type of
She's
redeemable
super intelligent.
assets. And you've seen that. I mean, she literally gave you her last breath on the moon. So that way, you know, you could survive. And you're trying to say that she's not capable at all. Like, she could be an asset, even if she was only traveling with you for one story.
Yep.
But even still, like, Rose didn't start off knowing everything. Like,
No.
she has to learn those things, right? Like, Rose started off as less qualified than Martha is.
Right.
Starting
Right.
off.
At least Martha got CPR training.
Right? Like, you know,
At the
like,
very least.
but like,
Facts.
give her the respect of
Her title.
having the experience and having the time and you know what I mean? Like, oh, Rose did this. Like, no, Rose didn't. No. Rose did a lot of dumb shit. She tried to save her dad and kill you.
Yeah.
She killed you.
She killed you. She literally. So I mean, I think like it's funny because I really like the Shakespeare episode,
Me too.
but all the things that you said are
So
things
valid.
that get on my nerves about it. Like
So valid.
when you said it, I was like, yeah, that's annoying. That actually makes me angry. But like, I also just
It's the J.K. Rowling line.
it's the Harry Potter references.
Good old J.K.
Good old JK, but I like the episode from before that, and I think that I mean
it was that, and also it's a lot of things. It's like it's a fun episode, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like as we progress into Doctor Who, it gets darker and darker with like hints of humor, whereas this one was just like
Cybermen and Daleks
super
and stuff.
Yeah, whereas like this one was like super like light, and there was, you know, they had stakes, but it was still funny and like kind of goofy or whatever. And then I mean, I don't know, the whole like Shakespeare flirting with Martha was really like funny and weird, and like it was just, I don't know, it was strange. I don't know.
I think it works because Shakespeare has so much mystery about him, and like
and they can do whatever.
Yeah, they can kind of do whatever they want and play around with it, and there's a sonnet and it exists. Why not? Like, just throw it in. Kind of just like throw it all in the kitchen sink or whatever. Which is, you know, it happens on Doctor Who a lot, and in this case, it half worked, and then when you remember that she's black, aka when you're not black and are like, wait, something's off about this, but all black people watching are like sitting in fear throughout the whole episode. But yeah, it's mostly fun, especially, and it's like she could be in danger. She's in danger in all of the episodes, so I don't know, but yeah, it's definitely one of the funner ones where she's not like
the family of blood.
I hate those episodes
because
I enjoyed them.
Danger in all of the episodes, but in all of the episodes, the Doctor is the Doctor.
Yes,
and he
has power to save her at some point. He might not be able to always, but he has the power to. And in this case, she's left stranded and doesn't have any power. He doesn't have any powers to protect her at all.
Nope. And doesn't even know that he should be protecting her.
Right. And to say, like, it all hinges on you, Martha. This is, like, everything, like, to make it through this, it all hinges on you. Well, then, bitch, if it all hinges on me, let's go, like, 100 more years into the future.
Exactly. Why would you go to 1913? Like, you put her in the most shitty situation you could possibly put her in. And then you're like, okay, I'm disappearing now. Hope you figure it all out, girl. Why you a maid at the you know, little school where everybody's talking about that you're black and you don't know anything. So who's really going to listen to you? You know, I mean, he's used to being able to jump into things and kind of assume that authority in places. And I'm like, you can't do that. Like, it's harder for her to be able to do that and accomplish that because it is 1913. You got this woman as a maid, so she's in a subservient position at a, you know, I guess a prestigious-ish school or something like that. How is she supposed to accomplish anything? And everyone just gangs up on her, blames her at the end. You know, John Smith comes to her and he's all like, you know, oh, well, you're basically murdering me to bring back the Doctor. And it's like, dude, she's just doing what the Doctor asked her to do.
And then homegirl, the other teacher or whatever she is, too, is also mad at Martha. And it's like, girl.
Right.
And it's like this, like, you're getting too familiar.
Like, she's doing the best she can with the information and everything that she has.
And
But I
the
think
doctor's the one who put them there. Like, Martha's
right.
not really in control. She's just like, I gotta keep you here until
But
it's
also
time.
only to mostly just to get home. This isn't
Also,
about her
talk about
staying
the
and
fact
like
that
trying
they
to
weren't
save
hiding
him.
because they were in danger. They were hiding because the family of blood was in danger from the doctor, which is like cool as a plot twist for the end, and it's like really badass for the doctor's characterization. But for Martha to go through all that when the doctor could have just handled them in the beginning.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I also like, I really think, so we see, the one thing too is like, she's in 1913 as a woman. She's at a loss, right? As a Black woman, it's just like, well, goddamn, right? And we kind of see in Blink where they're stuck in like the 60s, right? And she has to like find work at a shop or something.
Right.
But at least there's like, I don't know, like 50 more. It's not great, but at least he's the doctor still. He has all of his like faculties, and like she's able to walk around relatively safely.
And I feel like there's like a not really a perception filter, but like there's this air that the doctor has, and that's I think what he was alluding to in the Shakespeare Code, that like you're with me and people kind of ignore all the weird stuff that happens around me unless it's like directly happening to them. And so that's why he assumes that she's safe. So then when you take her to 1913, whatever it is that is about the doctor that's like kind of pulls the wool over people's eyes is not active. Like kind of like the the TARDIS translation circuit, like it's just not functional right now. So whatever you think that it is that was keeping her safe in all these other circumstances, I think it definitely warranted more discussion of like, wow, he really just left me here with nothing. Like the TARDIS was
Human doctor isn't even like John Smith. He doesn't even you could be human and still not be like boring. I also feel like like how are you turn human all of a sudden you can't do nothing? Really?
But I also feel like too it's at that point where she's like, she has that stupid line of like, of all the, you're finally human and you still don't choose me type of romanticizing the whole thing. And she's like deep in her crush or love of him. So she doesn't even have the, like, when it's over, like the, how fucking dare you?
Also, the fact that like when he's human, he's like a white male in 1913, right? So like, of course he don't want you.
And that's kind of the thing that I think needed more.
Is him being like this white dude who grew. What, he was born in like 1880 or something. Like that was also a disservice to her, the writing of her character, aka just hire some Black people for your writers' rooms, because she wouldn't feel some women who can be
way.
like, no, you don't have to make her the love interest. Why?
That too.
It just was not a good story to give Martha, and I understand that it was adapted from a novelization and all that good stuff or whatever, and the crux of it may have been pretty good, but it was not written with a Black companion in mind. And, and they still went in and decided to change and put the year back to 1913. Like, that was a conscious decision that they actually made when they did that. And I'm like, why would you do that? And like you said before, with the throwaway line of, you fall in love, you never choose me. Like, they would just stick in those random lines and in different things. It's the same thing with like Dalek in Manhattan. I mean, they're going about something completely different. And it's like, okay, let's just stop that, what we're doing, and let me just throw in a couple of lines here about, oh God, I am so in love with the doctor. I mean, you wouldn't believe it, but when he looks at me, all he sees is Rose Tyler. I'm just like, why? I mean, girl, y'all in the middle of some action right now. Like
that one. I don't know that one.
And you really are doing this?
And you know what's really funny is that like I was really irritated with, well, not so much Martha, but like like the writing of her, like we're talking about, and I'm just like, why are they like all crushing on the doctor? Can they just like be friends? Can they chill? And like as I'm going through the seasons, I'm like slowly falling in love with David Tennant. It's hilarious.
There's that too.
I definitely get the reason why they fell in love with him. I mean, he's a good looking guy, and I think with the doctor, he's somebody that's got all this charisma and everything, and he's smart, and he's all otherworldly, and he can do, I mean, way more than any human man could definitely do for you. I mean, a human guy can't take you to take you across time and space. That's kind of hot, but I think the big issue with Martha's run was really less about her romantic attraction to him and more so about the way he treated her.
Yes.
Because she did come at such a pivotal time during the show. So you're talking about right after Rose. And she's such a, important companion for so many people. I mean, just to be honest, a lot of people, that is their first companion.
Absolutely.
So now you've got this new person coming in, they had just kind of gotten used to 10 and, a lot of people had kind of, were enjoying the dynamic that they had together. I mean, because for better or for worse, they did have a natural chemistry together on screen. And I mean, even when you get them together now, I mean, it's still great. So, I really think that if the writers had made the decision for the Doctor to really open up to Martha and to really let that chemistry that they had in Smith and Jones shine and kind of build off of that relationship that they started off with, things would have been great. But because they made that choice to have him with this, just continual love hangover for Rose, it really just cast a negative shadow over a whole entire run. It was ridiculous. I mean, there are a couple of episodes that I can, like Family of Blood, that I can barely even go back and watch because I just hate the way that she was treated, by him, and hate the way that he did things to her. And so then you've got Martha and you've got Mickey. Here are your first two major Black characters on this series.
On the whole series.
Right. On the whole series. I mean, major Black characters. Because, you had some in Classic Who or whatever, but most of the time they were kind of one-off people and everything like that. But these are your first two major characters. And both of them had to deal with all these feelings of inadequacy and all this emotional anguish because of the Doctor's relationship with Rose.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It was just ridiculous. It really went beyond that whole, character drama because we're going to create some intrigue and that's what modern audiences are into and stuff. And it just came off as really problematic. And that could have easily been fixed. Like Connie said, if you just had Black writers and had women in the room to be able to look at, the different throwaway lines and stuff that they were putting in there and just kind of think about going through things in a different way. A lot of the way that the fandom felt about Martha could have changed dramatically if they had, because the fandom's following the Doctor. Yes. So when you bring in a new companion, people are always going to be, I'm not really too sure about that, but they're going to follow what the Doctor does because they see him as, their leadership. He's the man. He's the, now the woman, the person that's in charge and everything like that. So I feel like if the Doctor had been more open to her and had treated her better, that would have resulted in a lot of the people in the fandom kind of taking to Martha a bit more. I mean, the romantic attraction things kind of here or there, I mean, like I said, I can understand it, space-time travel is kind of hot, but a lot of that problem was really with the way that the Doctor treated her more than anything else.
But I also think that when you look at, when I had to go back, because I think that even when I was talking to Bayana, recently about, I was like, I do not like Martha. And I had to go back and, and see with new eyes, how capable and what she did and separate it from the Doctor. And it's hard work for an audience to do, especially in the first run.
Right.
And I feel like with writers, especially with Doctor Who, they are paying attention to the fandom but trying not to let it. Right.
Because they write it all at once, and so they kind of write it in a bubble. And it's not written in the same, their rooms aren't the same as American writers' rooms, and so there's no time period where they're writing and the show is airing. And so, they just finish the thing, and they're like, look what we did! And then they it's over. And so by the time they get any feedback on what they did right or wrong, it's the season's done, and maybe they've made their decisions about what's happening in the next season, and it's different. So it's, they kind of write it in a bubble, and it's one of those, we think we're being so progressive, but then by the time, people who aren't in their, bubble of white male writers in the Doctor Who writers' room get the episodes, it plays so much different than what they likely intended, not to say that it was any at all malicious, but it's interesting, when we think about the fandom and, how people perceive Martha, and, I think that most of us as Black women watched Martha and was just like, oh snap, they got a Black girl on here, let me root for her immediately, because it's just what we do all the time. But it's interesting to hear you, Robin, be like, I didn't like her at first, because that's how most of the fandom actually felt. They're like, ugh, Martha. And then so it's up to us as Black fans and as fans of Martha who watched it with different eyes to be like, okay, no, all the things that you think she did wrong, I need you to run that back and just like look at it from this perspective, because they were following the doctor and like how the writers wrote it, as opposed to the kind of crumbs that we get of Martha that are there but aren't like shown a light on it. Like it's just played in the opposite direction because it's not from her point of view. But it's
Right.
just really interesting to think about how the writers write this thing and think they're doing big things, and then the fandom doesn't follow along because of how they wrote it in a bubble, and then the other half of the fandom that are people of color are watching it like, okay, but I could have told you from day one this wasn't going to work out.
I mean, and that's kind of the thing that happens with the Family of Blood, right? Is like they were like, okay, we're going to put them in 1913 and we're going to have a couple white boys say some racist stuff, and then we'll know that it's wrong, and that's boom, we're fighting racism. It's great. We're acknowledging that racism happened in the early 20th century, and that's as far as we're going to go. And so that's just like it's just not believable and not okay.
So when they do write it in a bubble, and then when they get the fan reaction, that's why we have to then wait however long until we get Bill, because they can say like, oh, well, look at how progressive we were and all these things we did. And the fans didn't take to her. And it's a feedback loop of, well, you wrote her wrong. And you didn't give the fans the chance to take to her. But then it just it lets them reinforce the whole, like, well, they're not, like, our fans aren't ready for, like, a black companion
or a female doctor, but it's because you wrote it wrong.
Right. And it's like, it's not the premise, it's the execution. Like, and I think that, like, I mean, there are a lot of issues, like you said, Connie, about how they write and who's in the room, right? But like going to cons and stuff and like hearing them talk, like you can see that they just take those reactions from the fandom to further reinforce what they already wanted to think.
Right.
And I mean, this kind of connects still as well. It's just like, yeah, I mean, I think, like, when I was first watching it, I definitely liked Martha better than Rose. I was like, and I think, because I was live texting it to Robin the whole time. And I remember her, and I was like, yeah, I like Martha. And she's like, really? And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, it's a black girl who gets to travel in time and space. Like, that's lit. And she's, like, actually competent, and she's doing all these things. And, like, her little crush on the doctor is annoying.
All of that and so whiny.
I was like, yeah, she's like, well, she's so whiny. I was like, yeah, I mean, her crush on the doctor or whatever is annoying, but, like, she is really quick on her feet, and she like has all this stuff. And at the same, and I mean, I feel like when she left the doctor, it was like, one, she's the only not tragic ending that we've had for a companion so far, except Mickey maybe, but like of like the full-time companions, like she's the only one who didn't like
induce
die
tears.
or get like sucked into
induce tears,
yeah, become a ship. So yeah, I just, that's one thing. But then also I just really liked that she left on her own terms and was just like, in addition to being like, I'm not about to be on this TARDIS while you're like pining after another woman. Like, that's not me. But then also realizing and recognizing that she has dreams and goals and other things that she wants to accomplish. And while, we see later in season 4 that she like takes both her experience on the TARDIS and like her experience as a doctor and like kind of merges them together when she joins UNIT. I just liked that she was like, I'm going to choose me, and like traveling in time and space was great, but I'm going to go and like handle my business and do my thing. And I just like really appreciated that. And I liked that even though we got her whining, at the very least by the end, it was clear that we weren't going to get that anymore. And then when she comes back for season 4, she's very much just like, that's the homie. We got some going down. I called you, so you better come. And like her and Donna are really tight together in a way that like Sarah Jane and Rose weren't. So I feel like they go like after it kind of sucks that it took them all of season 3 to kind of like, you know what I mean? Like it kind of fucked with her, like her main series. But like when she comes back for 4, it's actually she's like great. And it's kind of like all the best parts about Martha that they then keep.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it was really great when she came back in 4 and she kind of gave Donna that warning about, he's like, fire and ice and all this stuff, and he's brilliant and everything, but if you get too close to him, you'll get burned. And I really felt like that came from a place of compassion and concern for her, and not from a place of jealousy, like you said before with the whole thing with Rose and Sarah Jane. I mean, it was just, showing how mature she was. And even when she saw Rose for the first time and she appeared on screen in, what is it, Journey's End, I think. And she saw Rose and the doctor stand beside each other. She's just like, oh, wow, he actually found you. I mean, there was no, malice or ill will or anything like that. So she didn't harbor any negative feelings towards him. Her exit was just the best. I mean, it's probably one of my favorite scenes in Doctor Who, period. I think she just really recognized that the toxic nature of their relationship, or the toxic elements of it, and the effect that it was having on her and her family. I mean, because they went through a lot in those last two episodes. I mean, they basically enslaved her family, and it's just crazy. So, she loved the doctor and all that stuff, but she loved herself and her family more. And I think her decision to leave was such a selfless move, and it was also an act of self-preservation too. And I love it when she turned to him and she says, I spent a lot of time with you thinking I was best, but you know what? I am good. She never lost track and never lost sight of that no matter all this stuff that she went through and everything that he took her through, she was good. Because when you really think about Martha, looking back through her art, she never really got a chance to choose where she wanted to go.
True. Yeah.
But when she was there, she always gave it her absolute best. And I think that she was able to take some of those lemon episodes. And part of that is probably Freema just being a great actress that she is. So even in an episode like Dalek in Manhattan, I can watch that and I can get some enjoyment out of it because I feel like I actually do. I know I'm in the minority there, but I can watch it and actually get some enjoyment out of it because I think Martha was a strong character in that episode. She spent a lot of her time separated from the doctor. She kind of had her own companions and everything. And I like the interactions and kind of the relationship she built with the minor characters. It wasn't so much about the doctor and everything and the pig things and pig slaves and all of that junk or whatever. But I mean, like even an episode that's probably one of the, episodes of the season, I still think that she was able to take it and make the best out of it. Right. And really be the most competent and compelling person that she could possibly be, even in that situation. Because once again, there you have her in the past, again, having to deal with the situation and, the doctor just kind of leaving her with the psychic paper and saying, I don't know, you figure it out. And she did figure it out. I mean, he really did. He's just like, I'm here for psychic paper. I'm going with the Daleks now. I'll see you later, girl. Hope you figure it out.
Right.
But that's such an interest. I never thought about the fact that she never actually gets to choose where she wants to go.
Yeah, me neither.
He asks all of space and time, where do you want to start? And Martha's just like, whatever you say.
I can't say much about Daleks in Manhattan because I refuse in Andrew Garfield's accent. I just can't. But
I forgot he was in that.
Oh my God.
No, I literally was just like, which episode are we talking about? And then I sort of was piecing it together okay, this is one of the ones I skipped. Okay, that gets separated. Yes, the one with the pigs, but I'd forgotten Andrew Garfield was on the show at all.
Pig Aliens is an automatic skip. But what I will say is that Martha, when what you're talking about with her exit and stuff, and I think that this is very important to the companions, especially when we get into Moffat companions, like we talked about last episode with Rose. Martha's family gets taken by the Master. Martha very much recognizes that her decision to travel with the doctor affects more than just her. And that doesn't really get shown in such stark terms with anyone else. Maybe a little bit with Donna, but not really with anyone else. And Martha's the only one that then immediately is like, I might have signed up for this, but none of my family did. So I'm going to go. And I think that self-awareness is again, it goes back to just the thing that I appreciate most about Martha. But I also think that, like Ty was saying, Freema's acting of those lines, I think really does change. Because I don't know that the lines themselves, the intentions of the writers did that as much as how she delivered them. Because if you read it, when you just think about what she's saying, it's very much I can't keep loving you while you love Rose, right? But the way that she delivers it is you don't deserve, or I'm better than this, I'm bigger than this.
You want me,
earn me. You didn't earn me. That's literally where I was going, and I stopped. But,
do you think that it kind of has something to do with Freema herself and kind of some of the issues that she faced going to conventions and everything like that, because people were there were people that were quite rude to her, you know. When she would go to conventions, people would have her rose signs and just do really mean and nasty things to her. So I feel like that, yeah. I mean,
I'd never heard
nothing that I've ever seen,
It
but
was
things
like
that I've
later,
definitely
yeah.
heard. Yeah,
Like I fell into
things
the
that I've
fandom later.
heard. And I
so
feel like that's why she doesn't do as many Doctor Who conventions now. Is really
That
because of foolish shit like that or whatever. So I mean, I feel like maybe that was kind of coming from a real place from her. Like, okay, you know, the fandom not only mistreated, you know, this character, but you know, I kind of got mistreated in a, you know, they mistreated me in a way or whatever. And you know what? I am still good, and I came in and I did my absolute best, you know, with this role, and I gave it my all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that it's important because, like you said, they write it in a bubble, they tape it in a bubble. Not so much anymore because we're starting to get like on the scene shots of Doctor Who and stuff, you know, like people are paying attention more. But at that point, and I feel like season 3 was the season where it really did hit big in America, or momentum started building in America. And I think that if you're reading that whole series and you're seeing like how the Doctor is reacting to Rose, do you want to sign up for another series if you don't think that they're going to do any justice? I don't know if they even offered her another series, but like if you're going to be playing rebound companion,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
you
I
know,
wouldn't want to
like
do that either. Reading the first few scripts, like, oh, is this where we're going with this?
Right.
So it's really just still all about Billie Piper. Okay. I would fairly also be like, so I'm just going to do this one and call it a day.
and then go on to do Law and Order UK, which is great. I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know. I it's hard to think about, like, as Black Whovians in general, there are things as like fans that we get, you know what I mean? Like when Bill shows up and everyone gets excited, the pushback you get when people are talking about having a doctor of color or a woman doctor, you know, like the pushback of being a woman fan and like hearing all of that like nonsense. So being in the show, it's probably however many degrees worse. I can't even imagine. But there is something about like the rabid nature of the fandom. I don't know. I'd like to see her come back. I think that enough time has passed, but she may be a Chris Eccleston
They never
type of
crossed the
thing.
streams, man, between
I know.
showrunners. So
well, they did talk about Moffat during the 50th. Really wanted Eccleston to come back, but he was like, "Nah, f y'all."
that was special.
I mean, that's fine, but they could have brought more than just Clara.
Right.
And I mean, at least it was Bad Wolf. Like they did, at the very least, they brought the best of Rose. But like, yeah, that was if they'd had like, because I think even they put it for 10. They put it like after Donna had like left him or whatever, or like was forced to leave him or whatever. So they could have put someone else in there.
And I think too, like, I don't know. At this point, like, you never know what like shooting schedules and things like that. Like, I feel like Freeman was on Sense8 at that point, and like Catherine Tate is Catherine Tate, like, so I don't know.
You can't afford y'all can't afford me.
Yeah, she was on The Office.
Right, you know what I mean? Like, so she she was good.
It's like, this is how much I need, and I don't think the BBC budget is gonna accommodate. So you're out of luck.
Not The Office at that time.
Right.
They did get Catherine Tate back for the Big Finish audios though. Those were good.
Yeah, but that's a money.
But it's completely different.
Yeah, it's completely different, and it's a different amount of work and things. But I feel like and we don't know, so we can say they don't cross streams, but the Moffat doesn't cross streams. We don't know what Chip will do. So like, but I would like to see a check-in with Martha, because back to her like life story,
and because she was still doing something doctor related, like the other companions had to like go off and like do normal things or like live in other dimensions or fly in time, whatever happened with the rest of them. But she's literally still doing something that he could still be involved with, and it's like only been like 10 years, so she's like the leader of, like, she could be the director of unit by now, like all in charge.
Right. Yeah. She was excellent on when they brought her back for Torchwood.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
I still didn't get that far. Torchwood.
I just skipped. You just got to skip.
Yeah, I was gonna say you could just skip to it. You don't really have to.
Because I was watching
Yeah.
it and I was like,
Just watch
wow,
Martha
this is a
episodes.
lot like season 1 of Doctor Who. I watched this already. And
Yeah.
I just...
Yeah, just skip to the Martha episodes. You don't need all that other stuff.
That's what I did. I started and stopped Torchwood so many times, and then I was like, I just know. Where did she show up? Okay, then. Let's just do that. Yeah, I would like to see it. And we get the idea that she's married to Mickey, and I would like to see that. Like, we talked about in the Rose episode too, like, it was a throwaway. It was like, pair the spares, as Connie said, but I still want to get a little insight into it, and like maybe Mickey becomes just as equally a badass, or
he was on his way.
I mean, I was like, he was already a badass.
Yeah,
he was.
They were freelancing at the time when they like got married, and then they were freelancing, so they were just like hunting Centaurans on their own and like other aliens and stuff. Like she stopped working for UNIT.
That sounds awesome. I want that spinoff.
Same.
I want that Torchwood or UNIT spinoff. But yeah, I don't know. More Martha.
Always more Martha.
I wish there had been more references or any references to her in the latest season, but that was wishful thinking.
It really was. We're like,
that was just like it would be
so
great
cool
if they did, but they won't.
Yeah, I'll take more Martha in pretty much any capacity at this point now. Even if she comes back and does like some of the Big Finish audios, which I love and I listen to a lot of them and everything. I think that would be a great way for her to come back. They could do individual adventures of her own, or like you were saying with Mickey and Martha. I mean, he's come back and done some in recent years, so it would be great to get them together, even if you can't get them together on the show.
Yeah.
It's just a really cool medium to be able to open up to those stories that aren't necessarily expressed on the show, and I'd love to see her do something like that. I know she's been asked, and I know she's been asked because I asked the Big Finish guys if they asked her. I'm that annoying person at conventions. I'm like, oh, did you ask? I don't know.
It's a good question. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you definitely need to, like, they need to know that there's a demand.
Yes.
But at the time, she was doing Sense8 and, had other things going on. So it may be where she just is not ready at this point in time to go back and re-explore that character again. But I'm hoping that she does.
Yeah. Cool.
Same.
Thanks for joining us, Ty. You have so much great insight, and like you listen to the Big Finish audio, which I don't. So that was because I was going to ask if she had appeared in any. So it's interesting to know that she hasn't yet. Is she the only, besides like Amy, Rory, and like the newer companions? Is she the only one? Because like Donna has done some.
Yeah, Donna's done some.
There was a recent, I think, Ted and Rose,
with Rose
has a recent one. So
yeah, but you know what? I love the Big Finish audios because, like I said, they get a chance to open up those stories that you wouldn't normally get to explore on the TV series. And I think they take the characters sometimes and just make them better. They just have so much. They have so much more that they're able to do, because it's in an audio format and they don't have the constraints of, a lot of budgeting and things like that kind of getting in the way. So they're able to tell really interesting stories. And they did that, like, for example, kind of off the record, I guess, here or whatever. Not really podcast related. But when they did the ones with River Song or whatever, I mean, God, the more that River was on the show, the more I disliked her.
Fair. But they did a lot of confusing things with her.
They were able to bring River back and like really show what she was like outside of the Doctor and show what she's like when she's not constantly attached to him or thinking about him or weirdly married to him or, somehow making her whole entire existence revolve around him.
Yeah.
It was great to just see who she is on her own when she's traveling and he's not a factor in what she's doing.
Right. I think they need definitely more of that all around with all the companions. Like what adventures, especially the ones who do work in space-time work outside of the Doctor, but still have that ability to do so. So definitely River and Martha is one of those characters where it's like it would be perfect to bring that in.
Yeah, I think that's something that I would love to see the show do more of too, which is difficult, right? And it would be like one-offs and stuff. But to just have the opinion that the Doctor is not, the world does not revolve around the Doctor and your relationship to the Doctor. Like he's a big presence. He's charismatic. There's a lot, you want to travel with him. All those things are true. But like, it doesn't have to be like its own standalone story or whatever. Just like some acknowledgement that I have a life. And
but I mean, yeah, but then I think the problem is that in the last, like I said, Martha's the only one who didn't get a final ending. And so you don't get to see the lives of other companions after the Doctor because they literally don't have a life after the Doctor. Right. And I think that, like, in the future, it'd be great to see more companions, like, get that. Like, you know, maybe they're like, you know, this is cool. I've done this for a year. I'm ready to go back to my life.
Right.
And
she's very
like,
Sarah Jane
call me when
aspect.
the next Dalek attack happens. I got you.
Right.
And Sarah Jane got her own spinoff, too. I mean, I think... I'm just saying, like, some of my favorite episodes have been when the Doctor has to go back and integrate into the companion's life. So, like, when Amy, like, kisses the Doctor, and the Doctor has to go to Rory's stag do and be like, hey, so... you know what I mean? And, like, and have everyone look at him like, who the F are you? You know what I mean? Like, he's the bad guy in that, for the 2 minutes or whatever. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, just that... understanding that, like, there are people who care and around them, and they have lives and people that care about them.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, Moffat wasn't great at that. I think that episode, and, like, I think one of the later Married episodes, like, where the Doctor has to stay at their house or whatever, are, like, the only two real instances, because they didn't really have families. Like, Rory kind of had a family and his dad was there, but the whole point of Amy was her parents disappeared, the crack in the wall. So, like, Martha and Donna and Rose, like, RTD was the only one who, like, gave them families and gave them lives, and it's been a long time since we've had that. So hopefully we get that back too.
Yeah, I mean, and he did that purposely, because a lot of times in Classic Who, you didn't have any of that background information. They were just kind of a person, and then when they were gone, it was just like, bye, y'all, you know, and it was over. I mean, there was no family being affected, and it really wasn't a companion. It became a much more companion-centric show when it came back, you know, in 05 or whatever. So it's different, and the dynamic's different. But I think it works so much better with a modern audience to have that in there, because the companion that's your set of eyes. You know, that's how you identify with the Doctor and everything like that. So you're going to want to see that family dynamic and everything. You're going to want to see how it affects people's lives. I mean, because you think about if the Doctor come popping up in your living room right now, you're like, you know, what my mama and them going to think? You know, if I go running off with this man in a blue box. Like, I mean, it's just a natural thought process you're going to have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think the idea that we can identify with the Doctor is just such a Moffat idea. Like, the dude is a 900-year-old Time Lord. I don't know his experience.
1100 or something.
Whatever. Now, but
it was like add a good 1,500 years.
Add 200 years every episode just because I can. Yeah, but like that idea is such a Moffat idea, and there are a lot of things about RTD that I wasn't a fan of, but I did like that idea that, like, the companion is who you relate to because they're human.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and they're like coming from, even if it's not the same background as you, it's like something that you can understand.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's something about each companion that, you know, even if it's the tiniest thing that you can kind of grab onto and grasp onto, whether it's, you know, you're, you know, from the same background they are, or maybe you're kind of in the same place in your life that they're in at that moment or whatever, or you got some personality traits, or you think, oh, I would react that same way. I would do the same thing if I were put in the same situation or whatever. So that's why you really want to, you know, kind of shift that vibe a little bit and make it, you know, I think there's also a line that you don't want to cross. You definitely, I mean, it's definitely still Doctor Who, and it's definitely still the Doctor's story at the heart of it or whatever. But the companion is, you know, arguably the person that's traveling with the Doctor currently is arguably one of the most important people in the universe. So you're going to want to explore more of their background and what they're doing. I mean, they may not see it that way, and the Doctor is not going to, you know, or tell them that it's that way, but it really is. I mean, if you're traveling with the Doctor, you're one of the most important people in the universe at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's also part of the point, really, is he's traveling around with a human to kind of tap into his humanity and understand why he wants to save all these people that he always wants to save.
Right.
So it's definitely it's like super important. And I've said this, I think maybe in the skip list, I forget when I said it, but like the fact that the companion has a family is also important to like keep them grounded in Earth and keep them grounded in humanity. Because when Clara didn't have a family, she's off running around thinking she's the Doctor too, because she didn't have anything grounding her to Earth. And so, like, if the companion doesn't
that's
have,
when she got out of control. She really started. I mean, she honestly just started losing control, and I mean.
She was like, I'm in
I don't know if that was like a
else,
PTSD thing, like Danny died and I forgot who I was and I'm having an dissociative state or something, but it was
she
not.
just started getting more and more risky. And I mean, you know, look at what happened in Face the Raven. I mean, she set that whole thing, she set herself up for that because she was just taking risks and taking chances. And she's like, you know, I can do anything. You know, I'm as close to the Doctor as it gets. And it's like, no, girl, you know, a raven flapping your chest, you're going to die. Like,
yeah.
Okay, so those were our Martha feels as our first Black companion, because it was definitely like a cool thing, like tuning into the next episode of season 3, like, oh snap, there's a Black girl. When you're watching the show and you're like, I ain't seen a lot of me in these first couple seasons, and then here comes this really awesome, very competent Black girl. And so obviously a lot of Black women have Martha feels because of the way she was treated and how controversial and just upsetting it was in so many ways. But thank you for joining us, Ty. We really appreciated you bringing your Martha expertise to our podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's quite an honor to be featured on here because I love you guys.
Yay.
We'll try to have more and have you back, especially depending on how 13 goes. We have one Black companion coming up, so we'll definitely have feelings about it.
On season 11.
It all depends.
Yeah.
Oh, girl, that 13 thing. I wrote that thing and I shouldn't have wrote what I wrote, but it was how I felt though, whatever. And it was just it was a big fallout from that.
Oh no, what happened?
Well, I had wrote the piece for Sci-Fi Fangirls and I was saying that, 13, because I saw where everybody was on Twitter and they're all celebrating. They're like, oh yes, this is the representation we've been waiting for our whole lives. And I'm like, is it, girl? Because they were posting pictures of like her and Wonder Woman and a bunch of other white women, and stuff like that. And I'm like, the whole point of what I was trying to say in the article was if the first, proverbial step towards change or diversity or representation or whatever you call it, if it always has a white face attached to it, how are we ever going to get our leg up in anything? Yep. If you're going to make that first step and there's going to be a diversity change, why could you not go with a woman of color? Mm-hmm. Or do something like that. So then, you get that.
It always goes white woman, Black man, and then everybody else.
Right. I was
maybe
if it goes wrong.
When is Raza Joffrey getting on the TARDIS?
Right. I mean, if you even get to that point, because if it fails before then they're going to go back they're going to deviate back to their normal standard, and so we never even get a chance to get in the door. Yep. And Lord, people was mad at me, and I was like, well, I don't care. So
I was giving you a standing ovation, so keep it going.
They clearly don't listen to this podcast.
Those people aren't here.
Anyway, Ty, where can we find your writing, your tweets, your thoughts? Where can we find any of that?
You can find me on Twitter a lot at Ty Gooden. Also on my blog sometimes when I remember to post things up there. Also Ty Gooden, and on Facebook at writer Ty Gooden.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much. Next time we will be discussing Donna. I'm excited.
I love Donna.
Donna Noble, my
second favorite companion now. Bill's still my favorite, even though they did her dirty. But Donna is just high up there, just like the girls who ask questions.
She also gets one of the best seasons. So
yes. So many good episodes.
I like Donna.
Yeah, I love Donna. So check us out on the next time and relative Blackness in space.
Yeah. Happy Black History Month as well.
Right.
Yes.
Happy Black History Month.
So I was very adamant that we do this. And I decided this in January, and I was just like, okay, but if we do Rose in January right now, we can also have Martha happen during Black History Month. And I was very excited about it, and then forgot to say it at the beginning of the episode. So hopefully you've listened all the way to the end, and you'll see that the timing was just planned last minute, but on purpose.
Last minute on purpose, right. And make sure to check us out blackgirlscreate.org. Read Connie's writing at Black Girl Nerds and all over the internet. You can find her at Constar24. You can find us at We Black and Nerds, and you can find Ty at Ty Gooding. Use the hashtag Tarbis to tell us your thoughts about Martha Jones, Dr. Martha Jones.
Put the
And
respect
join
on
our
her
Slack,
name.
where we have a channel dedicated to conversations about Doctor Who.
And we out.
The black girls have the box.